thank you for joining us here on Big Hearted Indy. So I'm going to throw it over to Greg, who knows these guys the best, to give us a little insight into our guests and why they're here. So take it away, Greg.
Thanks, Chris. And it is a great honor to be with Andre and Ken this morning. It truly has been a friendship that's blessed me. And I still remember those initial days when I first met you, Andre, through our mutual friend and your pastor, Kyle Dickerson, there at the Java Coffee House. Little did I know that it would lead me down a beautiful rabbit hole to other coffee houses and others. So you never know with one coffee house to another. But your story is so compelling. And then you said, you got to meet my co-founder, Ken Julian.
Yes.
Ken, who founded years ago Julian Coffee. And I'd already been a great consumer of Julian Coffee because I've been at Costco for quite a while, ever since Sam's moved away. And I said, I got to go to Costco. And lo and behold, before I met Ken, been enjoying your coffee. But your story goes well beyond coffee. It's about friendship that transcends race, transcends background, socioeconomic, and just upbringing in a beautiful way. And I'd like us to dive into that a bit. But before I go into what your friendship has now meant as you've brought business to life to help restore through sacrifice what God's doing in the world, using coffee as a vehicle towards that. Andre, I'd like to start with you, and then we'll turn to Ken. Just a little bit of your own personal, individual story leading up to the time when God put you here in Indianapolis and before you met each other. So Andre, take it away. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, happy to share. Firstly, thank you guys for having us. Happy to be here. Really excited to just kind of share our stories and go a little bit deeper. I was born in St. Louis many, many moons ago. I have a twin brother and grew up in East St. Louis. And in that time period of East St. Louis, just really one of those fond memories of community. And fast forward from my upbringing in East St. Louis to having played sports, athlete for sports. I really found athletics to be like my sanctuary, place of expression. I'm very competitive, extremely competitive. One of the things I could say about myself. And went to Northern Illinois University, met my wife there. I have 3 daughters. We lived in Chicago for about maybe a decade. I love Chicagoland, lived in Hyde Park, west suburbs, and which led us to here. We moved to Indy in 2012. And so I think it was after our second baby, my wife's like, I want to get closer to family to allow us to get that support that we needed. And so we moved here in 2012. Fast forward to 2016, had a consulting practice, spent about maybe over a decade in corporate marketing, have a career in marketing at the executive level. And it was actually around that time I was on site downtown at Viral Launch, one of my clients. I was had my consulting practice at the time. And there was a big debate about who had the best coffee in town. And so that debate led to the origin story of how I met Ken.
That's beautiful. So growing up in East St. Louis, East St. Louis gets a bad rap.
It does.
Tell us a little bit about that community at the time. Dispel any myths there. You were on football scholarship, right, to Northern Illinois?
No. I was recruited to play there.
Okay,
but didn't get a scholarship.
Okay, and but you played football.
Yes, played football.
That's right. So tell us a little about your community there, your family, what that was like, family versus and community, and then that'll bring us up to where we want to be with Ken.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I admire about my experience in East St. Louis is I grew up in a very spiritual home. My father being at the time a minister, my grandfather being a bishop, and so very strong spiritual upbringing that I had. And this is old school where we in our community we always ate together as a family on Sunday. My grandmother from the South would make this big, huge meal on Sundays, and we would all come together. And that was just a ritual for us to come together and eat. And those memories of all of us, my cousins, big family, lots of cousins and brothers and sisters coming together on those Sundays in East St. Louis at a home that my grandfather built with his hands. He built that home. Took him a few years to build it, but he did it with his hands. And we were given that story of how this home that we were celebrating to be a part of was built by my grandfather, who was alive at the time, just gave us a lot of sense of ownership and a sense of grit, if you will. One of the things that I think stood out is, as I was growing up in East St. Louis, yes, we had, there was a lot of crime gangs and things like that around us. Which is usually what people, when they hear about East St. Louis, is murder capital. It's, a very violent place. But my experience was, yes, that existed, but within our community, that was like one of those things where we were, I think, insulated and sheltered from that. Surely I had opportunities to join gangs and get into that sort of things growing up. But my late uncle, Clarence Guthrie, he created this program in East St. Louis that was sports related. And it was a summer program that would allow for the kids to go to any of the schools that were open gym, and you can go play basketball, you can go play like different sports and athletics that they had going on. And it was a way for us to get engaged in the summers, gave us things to do, which really afforded us opportunities to stay activated, engaged within these activities instead of what could have been the opportunity, which would be, if you don't have those programs, then what do kids do, right? And so
some powerful role models.
Yeah, so we had very powerful role models, very strong sense of what I call grit, identity, purpose, due to the external circumstances around us. So it was like I wanted to prove people wrong. It's like that chip on your shoulder, if you will. And so that allowed me to use that as fuel to make something of myself, if you will.
Amen. Thank you so much, Andre. Well, Ken, you have a bit of a different story here, but would love to hear the good, bad, and ugly of growing up and where you're from and what brought you to that point where ultimately we'll get to you and Andre connecting.
Yeah, I grew up on the west side of Indy. My grandparents and parents all grew up in Drexel Gardens, which is a small little low-income community near the airport, or at least the old airport. So that's where they grew up. My mom had me at a very young age, at the age of 16, so which was very problematic back in 1967. Wasn't well accepted to be pregnant and be in high school. So my mom was very sacrificial with that. Went to Ben Davis High School. Finally escaped the west side. I now live in Westfield just a few years ago, but I grew up on the west side for all those years. Very active in sports, played basketball and tennis, very competitive. Like Andre, we've had a few competitions. We won't talk about them today, but it was always motivated by sports, very competitive, very disciplined. So I wasn't a great athlete early on, but I practiced all the time, and I was kind of a late bloomer. And then I just remember kind of in my high school years just being motivated to go to college and be successful. I was the first person in my family to go to college.
Wow.
And then it goes to like my senior year, my 18th birthday. I remember my mom made a cake, and it had a caramel house on it. She drew a caramel house, a Mercedes, and a dollar sign or something. So that kind of tells you where I was all about the money back then. So thank God I gave my life to Christ later and kind of changed that perspective. But I went to graduate from Indiana University, marketing degree, and then was in the soft drink industry for my first 3 or 4 years, kind of worked my way into management. And then I got into medical sales for about 15 years after that. Medtronic was my last job with that. So in 2004 is when I started Julian Coffee Roasters. A couple years prior to that, I was looking to possibly get out of corporate America, medical sales, and I had an entrepreneurial spirit. So I was looking at food and beverage type opportunities, and none of them panned out. So I started roasting coffee at home, setting off the fire alarms. My little 2-year-old son was putting on his fire suit and everything to put out the fires. That's great. Kind of where it started. But and then I went to a big coffee convention, the Specialty Coffee Association in Atlanta in 2003. came back with 2 coffee roasters, got a warehouse on the west side of Indy, and that's kind of where Julian Coffee was born. And then about a year after that, we purchased a cafe in downtown Zionsville called Eagle Creek Coffee Company. It's now Rosie's, but and we had one on the east side at Fort Bend, across from the Finance Center, and then we had one for about 10 years at Traders Point Christian Church, which is our home church. But so been out of the cafe business since 2012, concentrating on wholesale business, and then luckily I connected with Andre quite a few years ago and became friends, and now we're business partners.
Yeah, you mentioned your 2-year-old, but tell us a little bit about your family and what they're up to.
Yeah, so I got my son's now 27. Time flies. Daughter's, he's very creative. He's got a band and all that. And my daughter's 24, and she's going to have my first grandson here in the next probably 2 or 3 weeks. So
congratulations!
Super excited about that. And we've got 2 step granddaughters as well.
Right.
She works part-time at Julian Coffee. We've got a few family members working. My mom works 3 days a week in administration, and my wife works a couple days a week. And daughter's working part-time during the pregnancy, so kind of definitely a family business right now.
That's great. Well, take us now to how this friendship formed. You stood up Julian, you were starting to grow, and God brought Andre into your life. Guys, play back with each other how that friendship has formed. And
yeah,
Andre's got this story pretty well.
Okay. I could go in. Absolutely. So, again, I kind of started with that. I was on site at Viral Launch downtown. At the time, this is my consulting practice, helping growth marketing, helping them with their strategy and growth marketing. And my wife, she calls me a coffee snob, or bougie coffee is what she she identifies me as. Oh, you're bougie when it comes to coffee. So I had coffee. I think I got Big Coffee Roasters at the time, and we were having this debate where who had the best coffee in town. So several people with their, mugs like, oh, well, it's, Tinker is B. And one guy said, you should try Julian Coffee. They're really, really good. It's amazing coffee. And I think it's the best in town. And so I'm like, I would like to try this Julian Coffee because I had never heard of it at the time. And so I literally leave my client's office at noon, and I traverse up to Zionsville expecting a coffee shop, or walk in, and I'm like, where's the baristas? There's no baristas here. Ken and a mutual friend of ours, Eric, was, I think you guys were literally just did like a workout or something like that. Back. The roasters are going, and he's walking up, and Eric's got his little towel. He's like wiping sweat off. I'm like, what kind of place did I just walk into? And so Ken goes and says, well, we're not a coffee shop, but I can get you a cup of coffee. And so I told him, I said, well, there is this big debate about this being the best coffee in town, and I want to try this coffee. And so he gives me I think it was Ethiopian yogurt chef is what he gave me. And as I'm drinking this coffee, he says, you want to go take a tour? I said, absolutely. I've never been into a roaster before. And so we do this tour, and he's telling me about his origin story. I'm drinking this coffee, and I was like, wow, this coffee is really good, right? I'm really blown away by it. And he's sharing his why with me, his purpose, the purpose-driven component of why he built Julian in the first place, and how he gives back to organizations like Will and Mission. And when he starts talking about that, my heartstrings are like moving. I'm like, wow, this guy's got purpose. This guy's got, a core values that align with me. And so it was at that moment that we kind of really hit off this deep connection. He started sharing his faith, and I'm like, what? And not really shy about it. And so, and even at that season in my life, I was needing that. I was needing to see someone kind of not shy away from that, because being a corporate, that's just not quite the thing to do when you're in board meetings, right? Let me share my faith, right? But so yeah, it was in that moment that it really started to blossom into this, what is God doing here, right? And so that's the origin story, how we met.
So Ken, I think I struggle, many of my friends struggle with developing purpose or losing purpose and trying to refine purpose. As you got involved in that, was that something that was always clear to you? Did it kind of get refined? Or tell us about, how you centered in on your purpose. And then, sometimes it seems like purpose sometimes costs you money. And how does that fit in with, making a profit and keeping the doors open?
Yeah, so I was I grew up in a conservative church from the early days. My mom remarried, and I went to fairly conservative church and didn't really grasp that. But so I gave my life to Christ at Traders Point probably 24 years ago. So obviously God had been working on me for quite some time, but that kind of changed my heart. And then I started the roastery in 2004. And just a few years later, I met a gentleman, Dr. Alan Hant, who lives here in Indy, but he had a mission in Boquete, Panama, which actually was in the coffee growing region. So I took a trip with Traders Point with a group, and it just absolutely just changed my heart to be up there with the people, that the Guayami tribe that's there picking the coffee, and very impoverished. A lot of crazy bad things going on within the communities and stuff, but Alan Hant was helping them, and it just changed my heart. Came home, tried to explain that to my wife and young kids, but the next year I actually led the same trip to Panama, and it changed my wife, and it certainly changed my children. And I think that was probably one of the biggest impactful things I've done for my kids, was taking them to Panama, because they're very compassionate and caring and love helping people. So that kind of changed my perspective with Julian Coffee. At the time, I had Java for a Cause, which allowed you to choose your coffee and then maybe pick a charity that would go along with that. And then several years after that, I came up with Purpose-Driven Coffee, where I wanted to give back to some local charities, and then end up being some charities outside of, say, Wheeler Mission, a Recovery Cafe, which is addictions and homelessness downtown Indy as well. Mm-hmm. I got connected with a gentleman from Honduras who grew up in an orphanage called Micah Project.
Yeah, I took my two girls down there. Friends of mine from St. Louis were supporters, and I think he maybe came from St. Louis.
Yeah. What was your friend's name in Micah Project?
Darwin Pavone.
And I think it's Michael, I forget his last name, but he was the guy on site that started the Micah Project. My friend was Drew Smith, whose father really started Sweet Tarts, and fascinating guy.
Yeah. So we've been supporting Micah Project for several years, and we hooked up with Africa Outreach USA. A gentleman lives here, runs that. We actually built a sport court in Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe several years ago, which came with gender identity or gender equality, AIDS, education, all those types of things. But early on it was like, hey, I want to give back, and it's like, oh man, I actually have to be successful and make money to be able to give back. So
right.
But fortunately, we've had a lot of success over the last decade, 12 years in growth after I got out of the cafe business. And so we're able to help consistently our charity partners. One other partner is SLED, which is on the east side of Indy, which helps men and women transition from prison, gives them a home, helps, gives them, job education, and try to get them back on our feet. That's one of our fairly new things, but
it's beautiful. I can tell with how God had led you, why you and Andre connected now with this new venture. Why don't you describe? I mean, Ken's wearing the swag and Andre's got the spiel, but tell us a little bit about that and what your vision for that is. And also, Ken, just about Julian too, how you see these two working together and your vision for the future with what you're up to.
Yeah. So when we originally, again, we met in 2016, and I was helping Ken with had my consulting practice, helping Ken with marketing. He had Zombie Joe Coffee, I believe, at the time, and it was a new line item for him. And so we put our skills together on that particular product. And as we grew our friendship, we started to really, I think, go deeper into impact and how the ways in which we can actually have impact with coffee. I'm bringing a lot of technology background, Ken with the coffee and sales. And so it was actually one day I was praying, and I asked God, I said, God, you give me all these skills and tools. Before I leave this planet, how can I want to have the greatest level of impact. And, I want you to give me an idea that I could take these tools, not to just make money, but can make money and provide high level of impact. And the idea of CoinCoffee came to me. And it was through prayer and fasting, actually. And then I shared that idea with Ken. I was like, hey, man, I got this idea about how we could, come together with coffee and technology at the time, actually leveraging blockchain technology is the original core that we were thinking. And he said, yeah, let's do it. Right. It was kind of like the origin. Now we've since evolved, but in that evolution of that idea was always at the root of it is how can we have a huge impact in the community leveraging technology and coffee was our kind of core that we started with. And I think it's important to share that one of the things that Ken and I were really wanting to hone in on is how do you do impact in a very, I would say, efficient way. And when we got accepted into the Praxis Fellowship and gone through the in-residency program, it was literally, I think, at that moment that both Ken and I said, wow, this is how you you do high impact. And so CoinCoffee we've had in this current version is really about, coming alongside mission-driven brands and nonprofits to help them drive revenue through coffee collaborations that their friends love and share. And so it's through these coffee collaborations that we do, which allows us to give back to these particular causes through these coffee collabs.
That's wonderful. And give us an example of a nonprofit that would develop their financial wherewithal leveraging what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've partnered with a local nonprofit called Kids Voice Indiana, who is focused on, providing advocacy services, legal services to children who are, coming to the system, whether it be through abuse or paternity, and they provide this advocacy program. And so we provide up to 33% of the revenue goes back to Kids Voice. And so through that coffee collaboration, we're able to partner with Kids Voice. We did this coffee collaboration where they got to come to the roaster. We dialed in on a coffee specific for them that they got to choose. We designed the coffee packaging, the messaging, and the beautiful thing about this is that it allows for Kids Voice to have a product that they can push to their community. And it's like one of those things where if I already have coffee and I want to give back to Kids Voice, I could purchase this coffee knowing that proceeds is going directly to Kids Voice.
That's such a beautiful model. I know, Don,
So I was a business guy for a few years, and it's tough out there. I mean, it's dog eat dog, right?
Absolutely.
I guarantee you Costco doesn't say, oh, whatever you'd like to charge, that'll work for us.
Yeah.
Right?
No, they don't.
And, Medtronic, that was a pretty prestigious, kind of one of the top sales jobs in the country, doing medical device, et cetera. So maybe I'm a hard-hearted guy. And how do I develop a softer heart for the purposes or the things? What could be the catalyst to that?
Did you want to answer that one?
I think just being introduced. I mean, just like I was introduced going to Panama and serving. I mean, serving and helping people feels so good when you do it. But many people get so busy in life, I feel, that they don't get that opportunity. But it takes an invitation from somebody, to do those types of things. So for me, with coffee, it's as simple as coffee. A lot of people have it on their counter every morning, and if they do have a heart to help a certain organization, it's like, why not buy this coffee? It's got their logo on it. You're reminded of it every morning, and literally every sip of coffee that you take is benefiting that organization. Mm-hmm. But I just think it's just being introduced to helping people. People are in this world just so self-centered. A lot of people are, and they're just so busy worrying about themselves.
So to serve, to say yes. People are going to present things to you, and, it's easy to just say, I'm too busy, right? My kids are in travel sports, but blah, 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 blah. So to say yes, obviously you'd never been to Panama, to at least be open to a new experience. And it sounds like both of you benefited from kind of leveling up your peer group. You were around compassionate people. You were around some people perhaps at the church, et cetera, that had a heart for missions, or you ran into a missionary that truly kind of demonstrated the love of Christ. Sounds like those are probably some things that we all need to kind of look at as to what we can do.
And one of the things that you've brought to the table for Citizen 7 is offering guys a chance to go on a mission trip next year and to see how that continues. I thought that was a beautiful model of how people's hearts could be captured once they go on a trip like that.
We believe that camps and mission trips are two real catalysts. When you talk to people about their journey, a lot of times, they've had an experience that the good Lord used that vehicle, but also they went and served. For me, it was microfinance in Dominican Republic with Opportunity International. To others, I know, Mission to Ukraine, or other people, Homes of Hope. One of our, initiatives was that we are challenging. We know that people sometimes they look at their budget and go, I can't spend $4,000 or something to go travel. So we subsidize that. And in an effort to get a few more, we can't take them all, but try to get people, they're going to Costa Rica in January to build homes for people that have never had a home over a roof over their head. So excited about that, and partnering with a guy named Jeff Williams at Spry Brands, who's also scholarshiping some of these people.
Yeah, we'd love for your story there, but go ahead.
I will say, just in the last, being introduced to Greg and being part of the Praxis has been kind of eye-opening to me in the last 9 months, because, having a purpose-driven coffee company and giving back to local charities and charities abroad, I felt like that was redemptive, but I didn't truly understand the full redemptive impact from your employees, your customers, and then the community. So I'm kind of grasping that now. I mean, that's a huge opportunity. Over the years, we have had opportunities for our employees to go down to Wheeler Mission and serve. So I think simple things like that, sharing those things with your employees, and maybe give them an opportunity to serve when maybe they're not going to church, they don't see those opportunities, and just that one time that you take them, it can change their heart when they're serving the homeless and they're saying thank you for being here and all those things. Because that, when I look back at the mission trips, that was one of the biggest impacts for me, was everybody thanking me, all these people getting on the school bus going to church, and the kids hugging me, and people just thanking you for being there. Just being there was enough, let alone the things you were doing while you were there. So practice.
So that sense of presence, I think sometimes we take for granted, text is great, Zoom is great, but to physically be present and say, this is important enough, you're important enough, I want to be present with you.
Yes.
I think another thing you said you did is you brought your kids. Is that right?
I took my kids to Panama. Yeah. It was.
And, a couple of people that I know, boy, they, in terms of, you ask them, what's a game changer? And that is take your kids on a mission trip, because they not only experience it, but you get the opportunity to have that dialogue and hear the questions that they have, or the observations, and what a rich bonding time from a parent and a child.
I will say, to go on with that, my daughter, who was, I think, 6 when I took her to Panama, we were on a bus picking up families to come to church, and these kids were coming out of basically mud huts, just very impoverished, but they all had smiles on their face, and my 6-year-old daughter had tears running down her face.
Wow.
I'm like, it was just amazing.
Yeah, that's where you go. Well, that's a great segue into where I want to take us in the remainder of the conversation. We've talked a lot about the what's. Taking your kids on a mission trip is a how, but I'd like to focus more on how. Like, for example, in the heat of business battle, how have you remained friends? I mean, what are the practices that you've had to learn, or humble yourself in front of each other, or love each other, in order to maintain that friendship while running business together? I'm gun shy. Business with friends, you say, I'm going to lose my friends, my friendships. But what kinds of practices? Tell us a bit about that dynamic, how you've worked through challenges together as friends.
That's a very good question. And I'll start with what I've learned now, as far as at least the vocabulary that I've learned. It's something that we've kind of embodied over the years. But I've just recently, Darren Ho actually helped me to kind of articulate this, but it's really the core values alignment. Both Ken and I have similar core values And at the root of both of us is that spiritual component. So we value spirituality, we value God, we value our faith.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our anchor in our relationship. And, we joke sometimes, we like to start a podcast called It's Not Always Black and White. Because there are, even when it comes to socioeconomic, political, we don't see eye to eye on every single thing, right? We have disagreements and we see things differently.
Mm-hmm.
But we know at the end of the day, and even if we disagree, we know that the core of our friendship isn't about agreeing on everything.
Right.
And it's that spiritual component of what brought us together is what keeps us anchored.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, Ken, you can rebut or give us
No,
more
I mean,
flavor here.
I agree with all that. And just I think we're both on wanting to grow. I mean, my faith just tells me I want God to keep molding me, and I want to finish strong and all those things. So I think we're on the same page there. We both have a heart to not only grow companies and be successful,
Right.
but to now use the word redemptive much more. Just have an impact. You don't have to be out on the street preaching to be a disciple. You can be a disciple within your businesses, with your customers, within your community.
Right.
And I think we're both on that same growth pattern. We want to finish strong, take care of our families, but have as big an impact on our families and communities and the world as we can before we go home.
Yeah.
Talk about that impact and growth. What's your vision over the next 2 to 5 years for Julian, for CoinCoffee, for your togetherness? What does that look like? And how can we help?
Yeah. We are really hyper-focused on having what we, as you articulate, our impact within the community. I'll just share our story, right? Just two stories. One being two friends. One I hadn't talked to, just found out he was battling cancer, and I just kind of showed up at his house and walking in unannounced, showed up at his house, and my heart broke because of the condition he was in. He's recovering, and in that moment, I'm thinking, I'm looking at my friend in a condition that just broke my heart. And one of the things he said to me was, I got to figure out how I'm going to earn money, loss of income. And then another friend who, similar situation, had a health issue, out of work. Also, I got to figure out how I'm going to earn money. And so, and I think in those moments, it's very clear to me that the impact that we can have is those who are closest to us. And when I think about CoinCoffee and the opportunities to grow this business, it's really real to me. The Kids Voice and other partners that we've onboarded, we brought on Guyan Creek Middle School, Pike Township schools.
Fantastic.
Who are looking to collab with us to do, fundraising for them, help with this coffee collaborations. And to me, the stories that I'm hearing are real stories of children who don't have food or children who don't have clothes right here in Pike Township.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about lighting a fire under you, it's like, I want our business to grow such that the level of impact we can have are real, tangible right here at home. And so that's kind of like the fire behind when I think about forward is, we want to grow our partnerships with value-aligned mission brands or value-aligned nonprofits who are having impact here locally and also abroad. But we're really looking at how can we have a big impact on Indy right here in Indianapolis. And so if you are a mission brand or a nonprofit looking to fundraise and you're like, we need a new creative way to fundraise, give us a call, come talk to us. We'd love to open up, at least share opportunities of ways which we can grow and collab together.
Well, Chris is going to post all your info out there, but go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So what are those first steps? What does that look like? How does it function for the organization? Give us a...
So yeah, absolutely. Right now, when you look at the way in which we do it, it's very simplistic. We have a form on our website that you can go to if you want to become a cloud partner. Look at our mission and values. If that aligns, that's first and foremost. That's how we lead and show up. Is there a core value alignment? Right. Check that box first. Secondly, do you have how much are a goal that you're trying to raise as far as fundraising? And then we'll get that first meeting, schedule a meeting. we'll try to do a little discovery, uncover what is it you're trying to solve. And from there, the most important components of it is that we've done all the legwork and are creating our MVP, if you will. And so right now, there's no upfront cost for nonprofits to do a collaboration with us.
Wow.
We do all the fulfillment on the back end. We create a landing page, and we go a little deeper into the messaging and what is it you want to share to the community, to activate the community, and we come alongside you as a nonprofit to do a coffee drop.
Mm-hmm. I've been working hard trying to find a reason why any nonprofit wouldn't want to do that. I haven't found one yet.
Yeah,
it's really an amazing new model, and this is a recent development.
Yeah, absolutely. We call it Collabit by CoinCoffee, and that was birthed out of Praxis, our fellowship that we've done. Again, as Ken articulated, we had the framework of how we wanted to provide impact within the community, but you guys gave us a toolbox to really say, here, this is what's redemptive about CoinCoffee and how you can really go into the community. Such amazing mentors that you guys provided us to just really hone in with clarity. So we were so deeply grateful.
And we kicked it off at Don's place.
Yeah, we did. It was actually at Don's place, and we kicked it off.
And how about Julian Coffee and your support of Coin? Just tell us a little about your vision for the business.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back with the fundraising side of it, nonprofits, I think there's a huge opportunity. Obviously, working with Pike Township, a public school, but the private schools are the ones that have very difficult times raising enough funds. Many of them Christian schools, and this product that we were able to provide for them, it's got their information, it's got their logo, it's supporting it, it's their coffee, it's packaged, it's their coffee, and many of these schools are selling gigantic tubs of popcorn and cookie dough and all these things that people don't want to buy, but they buy it because they want to support the school.
Right.
And in reality, we have a product that they probably already have on their shelf. They're drinking coffee already, and now, like I said earlier, it's going to be that school's logo on there, and they know every morning when they have a cup of coffee. So I think that's very impactful. But
absolutely,
so I think Coin is just an extension of Julian Coffee and the purpose side of it. We're just kind of now focusing it in on not for profits and schools, and I think there's a huge opportunity because, like I say, there's some really crummy products that sell millions of dollars a year of it just because people want to support it. Trash bags and cookie dough and all those things. I think we have a high quality product, and we can help them brand it. And it's not just a one and done thing. Why not? If you're having a fundraiser in the fall, why not have it available year round?
That's right.
Because these people are drinking coffee year round. They don't want cookie dough year round, but they may want a good coffee year round.
Yeah.
So the economy, lots of folk are pretty challenged, right? With a lot of disruption with whether it's AI or e-commerce, et cetera. What's the real challenge for you guys?
That's actually a good question. I think that, like we just talked about tariffs, that's definitely a challenge for us because coffee prices are going up. Brazil and Colombian. That's real for us. Also, another challenge is awareness. Just not enough people know about CoinCoffee and what we do. And so we're working hard to build that awareness. And, as people become more aware of these are coffee collaborations that are done by CoinCoffee in collaboration with Julian Coffee, you get premium coffee, and then know that, oh, wow, the proceeds is going to this organization. I can feel good about, that the proceeds are going there and have an impact. And so those are our two biggest challenges. We're also looking for angel investors. And so we want to extend our runways. So that was our ask at our Praxis showcase. Right. We did our pitch deck, and at the end, hey, we're raising capital. So if you're an angel and you want to come alongside the work that we're doing, we'd love to have a conversation.
And tell us where you would deploy those funds.
We're deploying those funds on marketing. We want to really get, again, our challenges amplification and awareness. And so we want to get as much organizations locally to know about what we're doing. And so we would deploy that capital to our marketing budget to get that awareness and technology stack, because we do want to develop an app to make it easy and simple where someone can do a fundraiser very quickly to spin up a cause.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Chris is going to be amplifying your story as we get this story out here. Any final thoughts? The audience for Citizen 7 is older, younger, racially diverse, mostly business people, but others who are not-for-profits. But everyone seems to have a desire to have purpose and to seek friendship. male friendship. What advice or parting thoughts would you have based on your experience with each other as friends and as business partners that you might challenge, especially the next generation with that seem to be more lonely than ever before and looking for that? What kinds of tips would you give our audience here?
I'll go just recently because this is in recency in my brain. Kurt Thompson that we just saw last week.
Sure.
Join a confessional community.
Okay, tell us more about that.
One of the things about confessional communities is really being vulnerable. Community of men, women that come together to, again, the confessional idea of it is to have community that it's about vulnerability. And in that vulnerability is deeper connections, especially when there's a core value focus. And so, for an example, for us is Praxis, which is I would call a confessional community of business entrepreneurs,
right?
And Citizen 7, also is the same. And when you're a part of that, at least from my experience, I felt that loneliness as a founder prior to joining Praxis. Outside of my friendship with Ken, it was who else, right? We didn't know. And becoming members and fellows, a part of Praxis, Citizens have opened us up to so many others who either, whether it be mentors or whether it be, men, women who are at different stages of the career, that core value alignment within these organizations has been like an unlock for me to know that there are others out there who are serving, who have a heart to serve, who have a heart to have high impact within their business. And joining that has been a game changer for me within my, just as an individual.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been huge. So I can't thank you enough, Greg.
Oh, well,
for all the people within.
I'm here because of Don. I'm going to ask Don a question, but Ken, anything to follow up? And I'm going to ask Don a question about this.
Yeah, ditto on what he just said. I'm on board with that 100%. It's been life-changing just the last 6 to 9 months that it's been. But I think God puts people in your lives for a reason, puts them in front of you. And sometimes you have to just let it pass. I mean, I just think back to when Andre came in the doors. I could have just given him a cup of coffee, walked back to my office, and we wouldn't even be sitting here today. And so I've learned as I get older and mature and to be more intentional when I'm meeting people. You talk about people being lonely. It's because they're stuck in their phones and they're, on social media 10 hours a day, all the anxiety and things. Be intentional about the people sitting in front of you. They can be lifelong friends. They can be world changers with you and all those things. So I'm much more intent on when people come in front of me, whether they're strangers or all that. So, and I appreciate that. I think that's where the growth comes is being open to the people that God puts in front of you.
That's right.
Well, I felt that love when I first met you in the conference room there upstairs. Both of you, you're very welcoming and keep going. That's so beautiful. Don, I know you have a question, but I was going to ask you, we have sort of our desire as older guys to see young guys come together in small groups and authentic, vulnerable relationships like this. Would you share a bit of the vision that God's given you as we've sought to propagate that and stand that up here in the community?
Greg and I have been in a group with guys for maybe 18 years that is really not a Bible study, but has devotional and prayer, but really was about going deeper and doing things what we call updates. So if you and I spend time together and I give you 5 minutes, what's the best thing happened in your personal life and why? What's the worst thing? What are you dreading and what are you looking forward to? Personal, professional, and family. Well, oh my gosh. You could be sitting next to me and I really am dying, right? And like, hey, I want to let you know, my daughter's been trying to get pregnant and, my heart breaks because she can't. Or somebody else says, hey, I was just with somebody yesterday and said, hey, got 2 kids that are married and such and such. One daughter, 31 years old, absolutely lovely, delightful, praying for, in other words, people were sharing their hearts, their disappointments, but also their joys. And so I think our goal, our hope is with meetups and those kind of things, that's kind of it's kind of like with a big church. Hey, that's the start of the party, right?
Yes.
It's not the end of the party. And so, our hope is that we can create these groups of 7 or 8 people that people in our scenario, we have a pledge of confidentiality. So I could share with you that I'm really struggling in my marriage, struggling in business, etc. And it can't go to your wife. It can't go to anybody. And so it's an incredibly trusting place of folk that are present and that are showing that they really care.
Yeah. Thank you. Because
Well said.
And,
I love it.
I will say onto that, it's been hugely impactful being a part of Praxis and all the just all the sharing.
Longings and grievings.
But what coming to mind is being involved with the church and small groups. We have an awesome life group that we're in at Traders Point, but I was much more vulnerability in these groups,
yes,
which was hugely impactful. Spending a day in those, like with Kurt, I was worn out at the end of the day, but it was like, it was awesome, you know? And then you go home and try to explain to your wife what an impactful day it was, and it's hard to explain.
To put into words.
We got to wait about 24 hours and let it all. But it's just an awesome thing.
Well, one thing I heard in that whole concept of agency of it isn't coming to you. That mentor's not coming to you. If you hadn't invited him back to take the tour, things wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Someone told me, I love this statistic, so that 89% of the people enjoy a birthday party or a party, like to go to one. Only 12% of the people are willing to throw one. Those stats don't match up, right? And guys, at least, I'm telling you, there's guys that I love that unless I call him, the next time I'll see him will be one of our funerals. Because guys a lot of times don't take the step of, I'm going to own this friendship. I'm going to own this for the quality of it versus, he never calls and said and such, hey, what kind of friend is that? So I would just encourage, our listeners to make the first move.
Yes. Well said.
Okay, Chris.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. We appreciate you both coming in and being a part of this. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching and listening here to Big Hearted Indy. We've got a couple things coming up. Our C7 panel discussion on how to support youth with their mental challenges. That'll be on November 13th at 6 p.m. at Cohatch Stables. And then we've also got the C7 Outdoor Conversations, Building a Business with Purpose, that is led by Andrew Harder on November 14th from 3 to 4:30 at Broad Ripple Park. You can find both of those at citizen7indy.com. This will probably be after the Mitch Daniels Coffee and Connections, which is on November 4th. But
She's sold out.
Sold out. Yeah, you can't come anyways. You got to get on that email list early, which is really, I think, incredible that this event is sold out and things are really seem like they're congealing. And I don't know if congealing is the right word. That's probably the least attractive word I could have used, Don. But I think it's encouraging now as you look at this calendar of events to see a lot of things starting to come together.
Well, we do have some mojo. There's a lot going on.
Right. Well, I'm going to bring some more mojo in. I haven't announced this because it just came to me, but, Citizen 7 is not an organization. We aren't a nonprofit. But what if we had a coffee brand?
Let's, a movement coffee.
That's right, because we do need resources, and this is a no-risk opportunity to take Citizen 7, what we're trying to do, make it sustainable. And so I want to talk to you guys more about that. I hope that leads our audience to tell your organizations that you're involved with, both here and abroad, about this wonderful no-risk opportunity to really amplify your mission and your story and provide a growing coffee enterprise, creating jobs and creating this movement, which to me is really a wonderful movement of God in our time. So thank you, Andre. Thank you, Ken, for your friendship with each other that's poured over into me and now into all of us. And I personally just want to tell you, I really look forward to walking with you and partnering with you in the years ahead. God willing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for watching. If you got something out of this, please share it. That's the best way for any podcast that you listen to grow, but especially this one. This one is word of mouth, and we appreciate your shares, likes, follow us on all the different social media channels and on YouTube. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again next month.